eggplant parmesan. Just like these. Grated parmesan, tomatoes, olive oil, salt and pepper. A large cooking knife, get them off, just as good. They're starting to look like 40 minutes directly on top here. Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Cooking for the Real World. Today we're going to make one of my favorite dishes. We're going to make some eggplant parmesan. And I got to give credit here to my sister-in-law Chelsea Pinchuk. This is her recipe and it's absolutely terrific. Alright, so what do we have here to make the eggplant parmesan? We have 4 relatively large eggplants, which are just like these. Okay, we got 2 packs of grated parmesan. We've got 2 cans of tomatoes. These are whole peeled tomatoes. These are our basic ingredients, and we're gonna need our staples, right? So some olive oil, we're gonna need some Italian seasoning, and some salt and pepper, right? This is our basic stuff. This is what we need to just get started on the eggplant parmesan. In terms of the utensils that we'll need, let's go over right here. We have 1 deep dish. This is gonna be used to essentially cook our eggplant. Okay, we've got 2 cooking trays. These cooking trays are going to be used to cook our, just to bake our eggplant to begin with. We got 2 of these. We got a crusher for the tomatoes. We got some prongs. We got a spatula to flip things over, and obviously a can opener. We're also going to use a bowl right here to crush our tomatoes, a large cooking knife, and obviously our cutting board. Okay, this is essentially what we're going to be needing for today as we do our eggplant parmesan. And I also want to thank my cameraman Matthias, who's here with me today. All right, so the very first thing that we're going to do is we're going to chop off the ends of our eggplants like this, take them off, okay? And we're going to cut relatively thick slices of eggplant, and we're going to go through the entire eggplants just doing it like this. All right. Again, we want these to be relatively thick, round pieces. Okay, and that we're going to be using and cooking on our baking sheets. Okay, so we need to do this for absolutely all the eggplants. What we're going to do now is we're going to place them on our baking sheet. We're going to get them nicely tight and packed together. The intention here of being on the baking sheet is that they're going to cook and they're going to reduce in size. It's actually pretty incredible how small they're going to get at the end. So don't be afraid to pack them in one next to the other. All right, we want something kind of looking like this on both baking sheets. If you have larger baking sheets, by all means go ahead and use them. The intention is to get literally all of our eggplant circles onto them and getting cooking. Now that we have our eggplants onto our baking sheets, what we're going to do is we're going to cover them with olive oil. So we don't want to oversaturate our eggplants, but we do want them to be just slightly covered in this delicious olive oil. The intention here is really to make them cook inside this oil, with this oil on them. If you have a brush, that's always useful. Otherwise, just go ahead and douse them like I'm doing so right now. Okay, and make sure that they get pretty much covered. And then what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to turn these eggplants over and do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so let's turn them over quickly. Up. Okay. And do the same thing on the other side. Okay, rub this olive oil into the eggplants on all sides. I want to make sure they're well covered. Again, if you have a brush to do this, considerably more convenient. All right. Excellent. Our eggplant is now covered with the delicious olive oil, and what we need to do now is just put a little bit of salt on them before we put them in the oven. All right. So let's get some salt going.
What's that salt?
Sprinkle them with salt. All right. Excellent. Good. Now we're going to take our baking sheets, and what we're going to do is we're going to put these eggplants inside the oven. So I preheated the oven to 400 degrees, and we're going to put them on the middle rack, and one next to the other. And we're going to let them cook in here in the oven for about 15 minutes or so, 15-20 minutes. Then we're going to flip them over, and then we're going to do the same thing again. So while we have our eggplant in the oven, that's cooking nice and gently, what we're gonna do now is we're gonna open up these cans of tomatoes. These are whole peeled tomatoes. We're gonna open them up and we are going to start crushing them inside our bowl. So in this case, what I'm using are Hunt's whole peeled tomatoes. There's others out there as well. You may use whatever brand you feel comfortable with. The intention is to make our own genuine tomato sauce to go with our eggplant parmesan. Okay. What's really delicious about this eggplant parmesan is when it has a lot of tomato sauce and it's nice and liquidy. So here we are just crushing our tomatoes, okay, getting them into a pulp. If you prefer to buy, pre-crushed tomatoes, by all means do so. They're just as good, and it kind of saves you an extra step. Okay, we now have our whole peeled tomatoes. They're crushed, and they're going to be ready for use in just a couple moments as we prepare the rest of our eggplants and get them ready to go into the oven. All right, we're going to add to these tomatoes, so we're going to add a little bit of olive oil. Okay. We're also going to add some salt and pepper directly with them. Some people like to add a bit of sugar as well, just to take the acidity away from the tomatoes. Personally, I feel that they're just okay like this, but if you feel that you need some sugar, make them slightly sweeter, by all means go ahead and add a little bit of sugar at this time. So we've now taken the eggplant out of the oven. They're nice and hot. Be careful when you open that oven because all the steam from the eggplant is going to come rushing out at you, right? So we've taken the eggplant out of the oven. This is what they're starting to look like. As you can see, they reduced in size. They're starting to get a little bit losing their shape, and that's perfectly fine. What we're going to do at this point is we're going to turn them over. Every single one of them, we're going to just turn them over and put them right back in the oven for another 10 minutes or so. Our eggplant out of the oven. They're looking nice and golden. They're still a little bit soft. They've considerably reduced in size, but they look delicious. And that's exactly how we want them. So now we're going to put all this eggplant into the tray with the tomato sauce and the parmesan, the grated parmesan that we have right here. All right. Let's take our tomato sauce. The way I like to start this is by putting a bit of tomato sauce first on the bottom, a nice thick layer of tomato sauce. Again, remember, these are our crushed tomatoes, right? So they're somewhat chunky, which is how personally I like it. So do a layer of tomato sauce on the bottom. We now grab enough eggplant to put right on top of that, right on top of the tomatoes. We make a layer of eggplant. Okay. Make sure to cover just about every single side and aspect of this. We're now going to put some parmesan directly on top of this eggplant, and then another layer of tomato sauce. Right? And we repeat until we're kind of through all of our eggplant. We keep on putting tomato sauce and parmesan and eggplant. Tomato sauce, parmesan, eggplant. That's how we want to do it. We want to have our entire eggplant covered, okay? And it's going to be a dish that's going to be relatively full. Once we have the dish that's full, we put it back in the oven for about 35 to 40 minutes at 400 degrees. We'll see that in just a minute. Thanks for watching. Perfect. So now what we got is tomato sauce, eggplant, parmesan, tomato sauce, eggplant, and then we're going to add the rest of our parmesan directly on top here. This is going to be a very cheesy mixture, cheesy and very tomatoey. You're going to see that the mixture of both tomatoes with eggplant is really fantastic. There we go. So now we got our whole tray covered, okay, with the grated parmesan. We're doing that, and we're going to add just a little bit of Italian seasoning and Italian spices. Not much, just a little. Again, this is a very Italian dish, so having some oregano in there is really what we're aiming for. Great. Here's our tray, our cooking tray. It's looking great. It's for prep, and now we're going to put it back in the oven at 400 degrees for about 40 minutes or so. Welcome back. So our eggplant parmigiani has been in the oven for about 40 minutes now. It just started beeping and I pulled it out. This is what it looks like. Okay, we got some beautiful coloring on top of it, nice and golden. The cheese has melted into it. You can see the eggplant all around inside the tomato sauce. So this is a wonderful dish. It's going to be delicious. We're going to let it sit for about an hour and a half before serving it, just the time that it cools off. And I'm certain that friends and family will all love it. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy. Bye.